All right, so it's 11:03. Let's begin. So, hello everybody. Good morning and happy new year. Welcome to episode 19 of the Teen Talks. My name is Radhika Soni and I'm in grade 10. I have been organizing the Teen Talks from the past 2 years, and this idea came into being because I wanted to help high school students like myself make a decision about our futures easily and learn how to navigate these important years. So I started calling speakers from different spheres of life, from professionals in law, architecture, sales and marketing, finance, entrepreneurship, and more, all the way to university students from various institutes like Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, Ashoka University, and more. So let me introduce you to our guest speaker for today, Aayushi Patel. Aayushi is a freshman at Duke University, and she attended TISB, the International School of Bangalore. During her high school years, she actively participated in sports, did a research internship on economics, and co-founded Nutri-Shan, a company that manufactures self-engineered nutritional bars to combat anemia. She was also the head girl of TISB and captain of the basketball team. Today, you will learn about her high school journey, her college preparation process, and how to balance extracurriculars and academics. You will also get an inside look as to how she created an organization and partnered with a nutritionist and a granola bar company in order to engineer a nutrition bar. So please feel free to ask any of the questions you have in the chat box. We will answer them as we go on, but we will also have a Q&A session towards the end where you may ask any of your doubts. Without any further delay, I'll hand it over to you, Aayushi.
Hey guys, first I wanna really thank Neha for giving me this opportunity to come here and just share my journey with you guys. I think it's so great that all of you guys are starting so young. I think a lot of things that I'm gonna say will be really relevant to kids who are young, as well as people who are older and are definitely much more into the college process. So let me just start by giving you guys a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Aayushi, and I'm a freshman at Duke University, which is in North Carolina in the US. I'm an Indian citizen. I'm thinking of majoring in computer science with minors in art, history, and finance. But since I'm a freshman, I'm still exploring. So we'll see what happens. This could really change. I'm really, really interested in entrepreneurship. And over my gap year, which we'll talk about towards the end, I also created a startup of my own. I went to the International School, Bangalore. So I grew up in Bangalore as a boarder, but I'm originally from Gujarat. And some things that I really like are traveling, hanging out with my friends, reading. I do a lot of sports. So I love horse riding and basketball and athletics. I'm sure a lot of you guys must be doing lots of sports. And I really like photography. So that's a little bit about myself.
That's lovely. Yes. And how was the experience of boarding in especially far away, because you are originally from Gujarat. So how was that experience?
So I think it was a really, really amazing experience. I think I went to boarding when I was in 8th grade. So all of you guys who are here from 8th grade, that's when I started boarding. And I think it was honestly the most incredible 5 years of my life, because not only did I learn so much and grew so much as a person being in boarding, I think TISB itself is a really great school, and being surrounded by my friends through a lot of difficult academic and personal experiences was really, really amazing. So if anyone is thinking about joining boarding, I definitely recommend it. It builds a lot of skills, personal skills in yourself that you will really value, especially when you go to college.
Yeah, especially it's almost like a little bit of preparation, being independent and making sure that it's a lot of you really know that you're the one who has to take care of yourself. When you're boarding, your parents are not there, so you get a lot more independent skills.
Yeah, that really is like that.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next slide.
Okay, so I want to start by just giving you guys like an overview of the timeline. And I think this is like a really great way for you to just picture how maybe the next 4 or 5 years of your life could look. But of course, like it depends on your own circumstance, and everyone's circumstances are different. So for me, eighth grade was like not the reason why I don't really go into eighth grade is because all I did in eighth grade was have fun and like settle into boarding and play sports, which is really, really important. So I think if you're in eighth grade, you should just spend your time having fun with your friends. And then in ninth grade, I started IGCSE. And in TISP, we have this like really like famous saying that all the teachers, once you come to ninth grade, all the teachers will start going like, oh, everything really matters now, like every grade matters and things like that. And honestly, like I would say that like don't exactly listen to that. I would say from like ninth grade onwards, you want to start obviously trying your best to do well in your grades, and you want to generally start like building habits that you want to keep up for 4 years, because it's going to be really important to show that longevity when you're like applying to college. But I would still say that ninth grade is very much a year you should not take any stress and just enjoy your life and do whatever you want. And that's what I did. In 10th grade, I took IGCSE, which I'll talk about like in the next slide. But one of my subjects was art. And art was a really difficult subject for me because our art teacher left midway in the year and we didn't really have any support or guidance. So I spent a lot of time, and I really, really wanted an A in my art because I didn't want to be on my report card. So, and an A star was impossible in art. So I really, really worked hard for art. And that's what I spent like a majority of my year doing, especially because I really like art. So I did that. I gave my board exams, and I was still continuing my habits, as I mentioned. So two of my habits was like sports and doing a lot of volunteering. And I've been doing volunteering from when I was a really, really young kid, like literally since I was like 6 years old, I think. And I could actually like go out and hand blankets and things like that because I grew up in like a rural area. So like the way where my house is, it's on the like the countryside, the rural fringes of my city. So I've seen a lot of like low income communities and interacted with them a lot over the years. So those were my habits. So I did volunteering, I did sports, I traveled, I relaxed. The summer after 10th grade, I traveled the entire summer because I was done with my boards and I just relaxed. So that's what I did. And then I guess the important thing was halfway through my 10th grade, me and my friend kind of like came up with this idea for Nutri-Shan, which again we'll talk about in a later slide. But that's what I started in 10th grade. And if there is something you're passionate about and you want to do a project in, I definitely recommend starting somewhere around 10th grade. So you have like 2 years at least to work on that project. Then in 11th grade, I was like chosen the head girl of TISP, which was like a position that I spent a lot of time thinking about and working in. And I did a lot of things in my day-to-day life because in TISP, like the head girl and head boy positions are like extremely demanding. Like there are a lot of responsibilities and opportunities and things we have to do. And then I studied a little bit like for my SATs, and I gave my SAT somewhere in like March or something like that. So I did that over my 11th grade, which I really, really recommend too, because you don't want to keep it for your 12th grade. In fact, if you can do it in your 10th grade, like I guess even better, so you can get it out of the way. But sometimes people think that they're not prepared enough with the knowledge in 10th grade, which is understandable. So I did that in 11th grade. And then the summer between 11th grade and 12th grade, so the way TISB is structured is we have our final mock exams that have the most weightage in right after our summer of 11th grade. So that's what I meant, where like you kind of have to act according to your circumstance. Because for us, it was really important to do well in those exams. So I spent a lot of time, as I'm sure most of my friends did, like studying for those exams over summer and kind of starting your work on your college essays. And I also did like a mental health art exhibit. So again, like that wasn't really something I would say academic, like an internship or something, but I just did it because it was something that mattered to me. So yeah, that's how I spent most of my summers. And most of 12th grade was just really working on IB, since IB is very demanding, and writing my college essays and applying and just enjoying my senior year. So that's how it was.
All right. Yeah. It's a very like fruitful high school journey with like nutrition and the head head girl and a lot of the things that you did. So really, you have a lot of feathers in your cap. And I wanted to ask you, when did you do your research internship?
Right. So, okay, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot to mention that. But I did my research internship in the summer before 11th grade. So that was like the one, like, I guess, main academic internship that I did. And I'll definitely like mention that in detail in the next slide.
Yeah. All right. And I just wanted to ask you, can you give us some tips for managing time? Like, especially because in 10th grade, a lot of people get busy studying for board exams and also starting off on their extracurricular projects. So can you give us some tips that you use to manage your time?
So, one of the best tips I've ever gotten. So, okay, so first of all, I would definitely say that like use like a calendar or some sort of like organizing like app. It could be your notes app, or I use something called Notion, but I only started using that after I graduated. But I mean, high schoolers can use it too. So I'd say that like definitely use something to plan out your time. Don't waste time at all, because of course you want to relax, but relaxing is not wasting time, right? So don't just procrastinate your things. I think that's the main thing. I never procrastinated, and I think that like it really helped me. But I think the main, like the best tip that I've ever gotten is like from my best friend and my roommate, which is that like don't overdo things, because like your perfection is going to kill productivity. So I consider myself to be a perfectionist, because I really like spend a lot of time like thinking about my assignment, my essays, like trying to get to the detail, trying to improve that one sentence. And I used to be like that a lot, and I'm working to get out of that habit, because trust me, when you have so much of work when you're in like 10th and 11th grade, then you don't want to spend time like perfecting that small assignment, because it's not going to matter in the larger picture. So I would definitely say that try to like focus on timing your hours. So if you say that I'm going to finish this assignment in 1 day, or I'm going to finish this assignment in 5 hours, or like 3 hours or 1 hour, like do it in that time span. Like don't take it ahead, which again like ties in with procrastination. So I'd say that if you really blocked out your time like that and you stuck to your like schedule, then it should be really good. And also like the other side of this tip is to take a lot of breaks. For me, like I used to I'm definitely the kind of person who can study for like 3 hours, but like that's it. So my breaks used to be in form of like playing sports with my friends, which was a really big thing in boarding. Like people get together and play sports after school. And even in like the most stressful time of our like entire high school career, which was when we had our extended essays and our college apps and IAs and everything was together, which was really, really stressful. We still continued playing sports. So I'd say like don't give up on those things, like whether it's sports, whether it's working out, whether it's hanging out with your friends, like whatever it is that makes you happy and relieves stress, do that at least once in your day. And I think that's what's going to really keep you productive.
Yes, I completely agree because you can't expect to study like 15 hours a day right before your exam, because that stress is going to even prevent you from absorbing more information. So it's always important to do something that helps you relax even
Yeah.
on the day before the exam.
Yeah, complete. And yeah, never study like last minute, like the day before I never used to do that. And I would say like that really, really helped me. Like start early. If you need to study the day before the exam, then you're doing something wrong. You're not managing your time properly at all. Cramming never helps in the real world, and it's not going to help in your exams either.
Yeah. And I even wanted to ask you about your stress, like how, so you did kind of answer this question by saying that you played sports and did things you relaxed, but IB is famous for being a stressful curriculum. So how did you maintain your mental health during this time, as well as, juggling different things like head girl of the ISP, head captain of the basketball team, internships and grades? Like, how did you um, not let that stress get to you?
I would say that like I'm definitely gonna like be honest here and say I had a very, very tough journey with stress, especially when I was in like my 10th and 11th grade, because there were a lot of like other things that also happened in my life that were making it very hard for me to just be extremely happy through this process. And yeah, like of course this process is not going to be easy. It's going to be like really stressful and you're going to need to work hard. But I would say that like really, really prioritize your mental health, because it's really not worth it. Like you trying to push yourself to the very edge until you feel like you're going to have a breakdown every single day is not going to have any effect on your like college applications and the results you get, because I've just realized like that's extremely useless. You're going to end up like wasting time. And there were like a lot of days when I wouldn't sleep enough, and like I would be sleeping in like my biology class and things like that. And my teacher, like some of my teachers were very, very close to me. So they would like, they knew that, okay, like she's always running around for work and she's really tired because she has like these submissions. So I'm just going to let her sleep. But honestly, like most circumstances, you won't have teachers you have such great relationships with. So I would say, like, first of all, try to create like a support network. Like my support network was like my older brother, my best friends in dorm, my parents, and they were afar. That really helped because I didn't want them to be like near me through this process because it might have been more stressful for some people. So it was like creating that network. And my teachers, like my teachers really, really helped. Like if you have like great relationships with your teachers from your like your 8th and 9th grade, then when it comes to like your most stressful moments, then you can rely on them and you can tell them that, okay, I really can't make this one assignment, or I really can't do this one thing. Can you just give me that little like space, give me that little flexibility. And teachers do that. So I would say, like, create a support network and just prioritize being happy and like keeping well, like sleeping, eating well. Like, trust me, like if I did those things better than I did, like I definitely did them, but if I did them better than I did, then I think I would have had like a way better and smoother experience.
Yeah, I agree with you because a lot of people, they're not sleeping enough in high school. And then even for us, people are tired during class and then they fall asleep. So it's really important to take care of yourself, because not giving yourself time to recharge will only hinder your progress. Like you won't be able to do an assignment properly the next day if you're just sleepy.
Yeah. And like it really, like once you come to college, you realize the importance of like a good, like for me, like sleep is something I never ever gave up on, which I think maybe was like the one thing that helped me get through everything, because I'd sleep 8 hours a day no matter what. I just am that person. But I would still say that, like, being mindful about sleeping and eating well, like eating things that keep you like happy and healthy, and like exercising, like just generally, like even if you don't like being disciplined like that, like do it for these like last 2 years. Like it will really make like all the difference.
Yes, I agree with you. So let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to talk about, like in the college admissions process, is like the most obvious, I guess, which is like a checklist, which are like the requirements to apply. So this includes like academics, testing, and like letters of recommendation, which are the three things that, like, no matter what you did, you need those. Like you have to like pass a certain level to apply to any university that you really want to get to. So for me, like, just to give a little overview on what I did. So in the 9th and 10th grade, I studied IGCSE. I took 9 subjects because TISP like is designed like that, and I got 8 A stars and 1 A, the A being art. The subjects I took were ad math, chemistry, biology, physics, econ, French, English literature and language, and art. Don't know why that's not there, but this is like what TISP has, like certain requirements for us. So we are like, we have to take chemistry and physics, for instance, and we have to take like English literature and language both. And I know that not all schools have that, but don't worry too much about that. Like I think when you apply to college, they know like what your school's requirements are, so that's fine. Just do your best, of course. And then in IB, I did 6 subjects as the way IB is designed, and I did chemistry, math, and econ HL, and I did bio, literature, English literature, and French PSL. And I was predicted like 44 and 45. So again, like in when you're applying to college, what matters is your predicted grade. And then of course, if you like, you have to meet up to it to like most of an extent. But for us, it was very different because we didn't have board exams. I still met it, but the point is we didn't have board exams, and the predicted grade is what matters when you're applying. And then I gave the SAT, not the ACT. I didn't really think about which one I wanted to do, but I know that like if you find timed tests, like okay, like if you're good doing like well under pressure of time, and you prefer like doing math and science, then do like ACTs. But if you think that you can do like, you need a little bit more time, but you're ready to do like, I would say relatively difficult English reading passages and grammar, then do SAT. And also like I suggest doing the SAT with the essay. It's just like an additional like 1 hour or something after you've done giving the exam. And it's really, really easy. Like most of you guys like probably write essays for high school, and like this is going to be easier than that. So definitely do that, because some schools have like requirements where they'll be like, oh, like, yeah, you have to do the SAT and you have to do it with the essay. So if you don't do it with the essay, you'll have to give the entire thing again. So don't make that mistake. Like really, really check the requirements of your school or all the schools you want to apply to. And then I did the TOEFL. Now, like technically, I just didn't have to do the TOEFL because I go to a school where the like medium of instruction is English, which I think like most of us do. But then like some schools again like are okay with that. They understand that. But then some schools are like, okay, because you're an international student, even if you have like a 7 in your English literature, you still have to give the TOEFL. So just like give the TOEFL. I didn't even put my grades because literally like it's like the easiest thing. Like they'll ask you like, how do you go to a cafe and speak English? So like, something that you probably know. I didn't prepare for it, just give it. You'll pass. That's all that matters. And then so for my SAT, I got a 1570. And I did 2 tries for my SAT. And I did the math subject SAT and the chemistry subject SAT. So like I got these grades. And I only did the chemistry one because I like chemistry. I literally did it for like fun. I don't think you need to do subject SATs. Like I spoke to a Harvard admissions officer when she came in Bangalore, like maybe 3 years ago. And she said that like, honestly, like if you're doing the IB, like you really don't need to do the subject SATs. But I would say that like I only did the math subject SAT because I knew that like I'm interested in math. And at that time I wanted to be an econ major. So it's kind of related. So I'll just do it to show my like math abilities. So there's nothing wrong in doing that, but if you don't stretch yourself, like it's not something you have to do. And then the last thing is letters of recommendation. So like I think this is like way more important than people recognize, because in my experience, I have seen like, I mean, I have like interacted with a lot of like seniors above me and juniors below me, and like seen like how they were as people in school and like what their college outcome was. And I would say that like if you try to like fool the college admission system and just like say that, oh, I have these like achievements or I did this and things like that, and then you just try to like impress your way through college even though you may not have done that, then it's probably not going to work, especially if you want to get into a really good school, because there are 2 things that are always going to like tell who you really are like as a person if you didn't work hard, which is your letters of recommendation and your essays, because your essays reflect your experiences. You can't really make up experiences and not make them sound fake. But then on the other hand, like your letters of recommendation are always going to complement everything you say. So if I said that like oh, I was like really good at football in school, and like my teachers never mentioned anything about me playing sports or being a sporty person or being an active person, then they're going to know that that was just like bullshit. So like don't like, like that's how letters of recommendation work. Really try to start building great relationships with your teachers. And I'm not saying that like I was just giving this advice to like someone who's a junior who I'm trying to help. And it's not that you need to be fake, but I would say that be really, really involved in your community and like genuinely care. Like if you don't care, then like maybe that's the kind of person you are, and like you'll end up in a school where you can be more technical and just do your work, but which is okay. But I'm just saying that like a lot of schools obviously care if you're taking interest in your community, if you want to help people in your school. What kind of person are you in the classroom? Like what are you adding to the classroom? Like are you the kind of person who sits quiet and is never noticed? Then that's what's going to like show up in your letters of recommendation. So like are you like disrespecting your teachers? Like you will have a bad letter of recommendation. And I know that like a letter of recommendation can make like the entire difference in like you getting into a school and not. And most people don't like understand that or see that, but it's like the most important thing. And I know that from admissions officers who have told me about that. And then yeah, so just the points about the academics is that like they're like the first round of elimination. So that means that like every school has written like the requirement. So they will say that we look at SAT from this range, we look at this from this range. So that gives you a really good idea of like whether you should be applying to that school or not. And of course, like your grades are not going to tell you like who you are as a person and like how what your worth is. So please like just do not do that. I know so many people in TISP who did that, and that's just absolutely not necessary. don't like define your worth by your grades, but work your ass off for your grades. Like it's really important. And if you don't meet the criteria for a school, then you were probably not meant to be there, and you would be unhappy there anyways because it would be like too challenging, like that kind of thing. So that's okay. Like I would not go to MIT because I don't have the technical like brain to like be there and like enjoy that school. And it's your life, so you want to enjoy it. So that's the first thing. So the grades matter like in terms of a checklist. And I didn't do AP tests. A lot of people ask whether they should do AP tests or not. Now, I would say that if you're like from an Indian board, so if you're from ICSE or CBSE or state board, then you should definitely like look at doing AP tests, because they give like the American people a standard to compare you against. Because when I say that, oh, I ranked 99% in ICSE, they don't know what that really means. Even though I know people who like I know a girl who went to Harvard and she ranked like I think top in her ICSE like results or whatever. And I know that like that's impressive. Like, yeah, of course they know like it's good or bad, but AP tests just give them like an easy way to like place you in the American system if you're in the Indian system. On the other hand, like IGCSE and IB are not in the Indian systems because they do that like in the US too. So I didn't do AP tests, and some people did, but they just wasted their time. So don't do that. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I also wanted to ask you, did you do the PSAT?
I did, but I really didn't want to do the PSAT. I just did it because TISP like forced me to when I was in 8th grade. And like I sat there and I drew like pictures in all of my like pages. So I'm just saying that like for as far as I know, the PSAT is only important if you're an American citizen. But I'm not really sure. Like you should check the like requirements for the PSAT, but none of my friends who are in like amazing / even great like American universities took the PSAT seriously.
Okay, so do you think that the PSAT is useful for people studying in an Indian board?
I don't think so. Like I don't I mean if you have the SAT, I don't think you need PSAT. Like they only look at your SAT anyways. I'm pretty sure that I didn't even submit my PSAT score. Like they never asked for it anywhere.
Yeah, they don't ask the PSAT score, but
Yeah.
a lot of people that I know, they take the PSAT to get accustomed to the way the SAT, the format of the questions in the SAT.
I would say that's like a bad idea because first of all, like the PSAT. So when I was preparing for my SAT, the first time I did it, I just like didn't prepare anything, and I did it from like a bunch of books. I don't even remember the name now, but they were like books that were like, oh, like we're gonna test you on questions that are harder than the SAT, but they asked the same material of the SAT. Don't do that. Like the SAT, first of all, is an extremely stupid standardized test that does not say anything about like your intelligence, but it does say about how good you are at like doing like constant practice in one kind of testing, a very specific kind of testing, and how good you are at like applying that in a pressure situation, which I guess is a skill. But I would say that like when you're practicing for the SAT, do the actual SAT past papers, because when I did like harder past papers, I didn't do well, because you need to be able to like answer the exact kind of question at the exact difficulty. It's not like it's not like a high school thing, where you're like, I'm going to study ahead so I can do well in like easier math. Like it doesn't work like that. So do the exact papers, and some like I think Princeton board, like review or something, and then other like brands, just check if they're like giving you the exact papers that are like tested in the SAT. Anything which is different in format, like the PSAT, is not going to help. So like, because when I did it like this, I jumped like 100 points. So I would say that do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good piece of advice. You don't really get that kind of information elsewhere. And I even wanted to ask you, like you said you did your SAT twice. So there's this concept called super scoring, which is why people do their SAT multiple times. Can you explain super scoring for us?
So super scoring is when you so in the SAT, there's two parts. There's the English part, and then there's the math part. And then those are like further split into two papers each, which is like reading, grammar, some shorter math and longer math, something like that. So super scoring is like when you, for instance, in my first SAT, if I got an 800 in my math and a 700 in my English, and then I gave the SAT again and I got an 800 in my English and my 800 in my math, then I can combine the 800 of my first math and the 800 English. Sorry, I can combine the highest scores of English and math across the two tests and combine them to like create 1600. So not every school allows super scoring. The concept of people do super scoring because obviously the first time you give your SAT, you don't know if this is the best you can do. But if your school is allowing you like super scoring and you did like really good in math in the first one but bad in English, then you're going to focus all your energy in doing good in English on your second one and not care that much about math, because you can super score your top English and top math and then it'll be like a higher score. So like I guess like people do that, but for me, like none of my schools allowed super scoring, or maybe like one did. I don't know, like not the one I cared about at least. So the point is I had to like do really well in one sitting. But anyways, you should give the SAT more than once to see like the best you can do.
Okay, so did you do better in the second sitting?
Yeah, so in the first sitting, I got 1470 and I got like 800 in math, like both times. But my English was like worse the first time and then better in the second one. But I didn't really go with the super score mentality. I would say that you want to go with like an absolute mentality where you want to do like you want to make the least mistakes possible, because the thing is that sometimes the curve can really like mess you up. Like sometimes you make like 7 mistakes and you can get like 1470, but then sometimes you make like 10 mistakes and you can still get 1470. So I'm just saying that you want to reduce the absolute number of mistakes that you make.
Yeah, I do agree, because in case someone only focuses on English in one SAT and then only on math in the other, then they're going to be in a dilemma if their college does not even allow super scoring.
Yeah, then you're just like ended up not doing as well as you could. So
Yeah.
again, like really check the requirements of all your universities, but I would say always aim for the highest, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So does anybody have any questions regarding the requirements and her academics? You can message in the chat box. Okay, nobody has any questions. So let's move on to the next slide.
Okay. So the next slide are like my extracurricular.
Sorry, there's a question. Does the college look down on taking the second score for the SAT?
No, not at all. Like they don't care. Like some colleges don't even know like how many times you took the SAT. I think the only college that asked me was like Harvard, like how many times I took it, but they don't care. Like I know a lot of people do it 3 times too, but I would say like never do it more than 3 times, and like try to avoid doing it 3 times. Just do it twice. So yeah, they don't care. Like if you do it 2 times. How does one? So there's another question. How does one figure out the colleges of interest for a person, and at what stage should the student know that? Okay, so I'm gonna like cover this in like 2 slides down the road, so just like hold on to that question till then.
Yeah, and in case we forget the question, please do resend it because we might miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about like my extracurriculars, and I've just like called them experiences because like I just want to give a disclaimer, which is that I know like a lot of students now have started doing extracurriculars in like a very standardized way. Like I know people say things like, oh, I need to have like one research thing, I need to have one social service thing, and I need to have be on the student council, and this exact mix of stuff is what's going to work in my application. And I just want to say that like that is like literally not the truth. Like if you're aiming for like an average university, like maybe that's gonna like work for you, but if you want to aim for like the highest possible university for yourself, then I would really say that like you have to just let like life happen to you and be like be the strongest like version of your, sorry, the best version of yourself, and just be really involved and like care and like learn. And that's the only way really that you can be successful. Like this like formula of extracurriculars is like not going to help you out, because then you're just going to look like every other person who's applying with that formula. And trust me, like we're a huge country, and most of the kids who are following that formula, you don't want to be in the same pool as them. So I would say that, like, while I say that, maybe like someone will look at my extracurriculars and say, oh, this looks very like, oh, like she looks like she just did like the typical things. But I would say that, like, when I did this stuff, like, it didn't like happen to be very like typical, but now I see there's like a formula for it. And a lot of my friends did very, very different things, and all of my friends, including like me, who like got into all of our dream schools, had like very, very different applications. And like, it's like, you just kind of like be who you are, and then all the teachers who write your letters of recommendation also really like support that. So if I'd like, like, again, like, I don't want to be thinking that, oh, I want to be really unique, so I'm going to do something really unique. But then if I do something really unique, like, I like do something with, I don't know, like something I can't even think of it, like suppose environment, like I'm interested in the environment, but I'm not like an environment like I'm not like, oh, like, I really, really care, this is my entire life. And some kids are like that, which is also like amazing for you, but that's not who I was. So if I did something like that and I focused my application on that, then my teachers would say something else, and then they would be like, oh wait, like this is not who she is. So yeah, so that's just like a general overview. Don't force it, do what you're truly, truly, truly interested in, but do that really well. So what I did was that ever since like I was younger, like for me, like leadership, I think, has been like one of my strongest traits. Like I used to really like being leaders on the sports field or like inside school, and I really like organizing people, resources, things like that. So I would say like one of my most important experiences was being head girl and being the chief organizer of Vivum. So if you don't know, like Vivum is like TISP's a really big like sports, cultural, and like just like a student-led fest. And it's really funny, but like when the Columbia admissions officer came to TISP, she was like that, listen, like don't try it. Like, I mean, she didn't say it like this, but she just said something along the lines of, don't write all your supplemental essays on Vivum, because I get it. Okay, like all of you guys are really obsessed with Vivum, and for like 6 years people who apply to our school have been writing about Vivum. So I'm just saying that like Vivum was a really big part of my life, because in 12th grade, when we came and we spent like the end of 11th and the start of 12th all doing this work, like this took up the majority of our time. Like we were always like, we did it from like the start to the end. But it doesn't mean that like I focused everything on Vivum, because you also have to be like smart and think about, okay, like if she said that, clearly she doesn't want me to only talk about Vivum. But what is important is because I was so deeply like involved in like being a head girl, being in the boarding house, like interacting with like younger students and helping create initiatives in school to help like younger students, and like be the chief organizer of Vivum. It gave me like some specific experiences which I wrote about in like my essays, and that is like what is valuable. So they were like, oh, like what is one time when you were like put in a really uncomfortable spot? And I could speak about something like, okay, like when there was an issue between students and staff, like students and the administration of TISP, like me and the head boy were like expected to be like the bridge and like solve those issues or something like that. So like, things like that. So it's more like the certain memories from each experience. So that's what I did. Head girl and chief organizer was like my everyday thing. And then I'll speak about everything, and then I'll come to nutrition in the end. And then I did an econ research internship, which is like, so since I'm from Gujarat, I'm from a city called Baroda, and there's an Ahmedabad University in the neighboring city called Ahmedabad. And there's a professor there who's like the head of the econ department. And I did a research internship with her where I like we investigated, I'm not going to get into the details, but we investigated something about like the education market and financial aid for low income students in the US. And that was like a study that she was already doing. Like I just joined it. And again, like I guess like a lot of kids like wrote research papers, and like everyone was like, oh, you should write a research paper and things like that. And I just like didn't want to do that, because first of all, don't write a research paper unless you're genuinely interested in like researching something, like if you have a burning desire to find out why like I don't know, cactus don't need water or something like that, and maybe you want to do research in that. So like don't do that. It shows. I was not interested in digging deep into some specific question, so I just joined her like paper because I really liked who she was, and me and her got along so well, and she wrote an extra recommendation for me too. So I would say that like, it's like really about what you want to do, what you don't. And I was really interested in education and healthcare and socioeconomic issues of people in India. And that reflected in like my startup that I'm doing now and Nutri-Shan. So it kind of tied in together. So that's why I did that internship. And then I was the captain of the basketball team, and I did a lot of like athletic running, like participating in sports days, and like winning those awards was like super something I have loved doing since I was a kid. So that was like big for me. And Okay, so now getting to like the mental health exhibition and nutrition. So quick note about the mental health exhibition. So I was like never interested in like growing up. Mental health was not like a very active part of my life, even though now it's a very, very important part of my life. And like when I was in the 11th grade, like there was an incident with someone very close in my friends group. And like following that incident, like it just taught me a lot about mental health and the importance of it. And it was a really, really impactful personal experience of my life. And because of that, like I decided an impulsive decision to do like an art exhibit of mental health in my city. And all I did, like, I had not planned to do that. It was not some productive internship thing, but it was like that experience with my friend was just like so, so important in my personal life that I couldn't not do something like for him. So I was just like, okay, like I don't really care if this is gonna waste my time over the summer, but I need to do this like right now. And that's what I mean by like you have to like live your life. That experience happened to me. I couldn't have controlled it, but since it happened, like I wanted to respond to it, and that's just like who I was. So I did that. Like, I created that exhibition. I created a panel of professionals, like as you see in the photo, and we discussed like stigma. We broke down stigma for people in the audience, and there were like maybe 100, 200 people who just came, looked at my photographs, looked at my art, and like read the experiences of other people who had like mental health struggles, like my friends who wrote like things for the art and things like that. So it was a very personal event. And although this wasn't one of my like activities, it was like a really, really impactful experience for me that I wrote my Common App essay on like this experience. So yeah, so that was just like all of the experiences of my life that were in my activities and my essays. And then the main one, I guess, that was like impressive for the admissions officers was Nutri-Shan. So Nutri-Shan is basically like a nonprofit initiative that I started with my friend. So the way like I came up with this idea was like since I've been like, as I said, like I've been volunteering since I was really young, and there's like a local school for like low income girls like near my house, and like I used to go there like every Saturday and like teach English or whatever when I was back home before I left for TISP. And then even when I came back, I used to do it in the summer. So like one of the summers, like when I was doing it, like as I grew, like I started noticing more things, right? And I think it's really important to notice things in your environment because that's what gives you ideas. And I started noticing that like a lot of the girls were like very, very not energetic. They wouldn't engage a lot in class, even though I knew they were like interested in the things we were doing. So they wouldn't be able to engage a lot in class and participate as much as like I would say like the boys, which is like something we see in general. And I was just very curious about why it was like that. And then I did like a little bit of poking around, and I found out that like, I mean, this is like something very obvious now, I guess, but at that point, like I didn't realize that how big of a problem it was. But like their nutrition levels, like even though like all of them came from like families where like I would say the girls and guys were like treated decently equally, they still didn't have like the right kind of nutrition because their parents would like spend money behind food that didn't give them a holistic nutrition. So because of that, like malnutrition in a way that you may not see on their bodies because they're all not like thin or like they all don't look like they're malnourished in a typical sense, because malnutrition is also obesity, right? So it's not always that. So I kind of got very interested in the fact that the fact that like a basic need was not being met because they didn't know how to do it properly was affecting like their education, which is like the most important thing that like our country needs, a good education and people doing well in education. So I was like, I was really interested in that. I did some research, and then I got really interested in the idea of like giving them a form of nutrition. So me and my best friend, who were like working on this project together, met with like a lot of bar manufacturers. So you know how you have Nature's Valley. So we met with this guy called Cali Bar. You might even have seen him. Like he's in a pretty big, like it's a pretty big company. And we collaborated with them to create like our own nutrition bar. So it was a very, very long process. The first nutrition bar was like very basic. But after that, even after I applied to college, I spent a year like improving the nutrition bar. So here, like the picture you see with our own packaging and like our own everything is like after like I graduated, because I still spent the last year on it. So before that also we had our own nutrition bar that we created with him. So I learned a lot about like how to create a bar, like how to fundraise, how to the first like start to end of like designing a package, designing a bar, the regulations that go in that, because you need an FSSI like license and things like that. So I learned a lot about that. And then on the other side of like after creating the bar, there was like the distribution. So there were also challenges with that. Like we had to do blood tests, like we had to create reports, we had to figure out like how to incentivize these girls to take these bars on a daily level. And I had like the support of like a great NGO. And then now like we've expanded and we work with like Akshay Patra, and like there are a lot of kids like eating our bars now. But like back then I still made like somewhat, like it was a growing thing, but we still like impacted like I think 250 girls, which is not like that big of a number, but like for us, it was just the start. So it was a big number for us. So yeah, like it was a very, very like exciting experience, and I learned a lot. And when I say that do things that really interest you, I'm still doing this. Like I didn't just do it for like college and then like over. I'm still doing it. It's still like a project I worked over like my gap year, and I still do it from college. So I'm just saying that like when you really care about something and you do it, like it shows. So that's just like my advice.
Yeah, I just want to commend you. Like this nutrition bar is just, it's so incredible, and it must have had such a great impact on those girls that are who were affected by something that they really didn't even know was affecting them. And so I just want to say that it's a really great thing that you've done. And I also wanted to ask you, like, how did you get in touch with the nutrition bar manufacturer? And you had also told me that you had to work with a nutritionist as well to, like figure out what goes in the bar and things like that. So how did you meet these people, and how did they, say, okay, let's talk with these two high school people and let's work with them?
So it was definitely like a really hard process, but I think like one of the things I've realized, like even now as I try to do like other projects with like my parents, is that like you really have to like utilize the resources that are like in your surrounding. Like don't be ashamed to do that. I used to be like not ashamed, but I used to have this like really like wrong mentality where I would be like, oh, I want to go and do like everything on my own. And like that's not like focusing on the impact. That's focusing on like yourself and like how you are doing it. Like, so I would say that like once I realized that, I took a lot of help from my parents to understand these issues, because they're both like been like in philanthropy and social service for like very, very many years. So they obviously had like good advice to give me. But I started at like the most basic personal contact. So the nutritionist was my own nutritionist. Like I had a nutritionist and I like went to her. I used to have her in not 10th grade, in like 9th grade. And then like I like lost contact. So I went to her office and I told her like, this is what I want to do. Like, how do I do it? Do you know someone? Because, like, of course, if it's not her, like she'll know someone. So I was like that, okay, like, how do I do this? And then she turned out to be really helpful because she had done like a lot of projects with UNICEF, which I had never known about. Regarding like nutrition. So she helped me understand like what kind of palate these girls might like a lot of factors that I had never even thought about, that I learned from her. Like, the fact that like I have to really think about the local season, I have to think about the palate, I have to think about things that like people can eat every single day. I have to think about not making them a bit like ensuring that like while they're getting the proper nutrition, they don't become like they don't gain a lot of weight, because that would be unhealthy for them and things like that. So it was like it was really, really interesting. I started with her, and then me and my friend struggled for maybe 4 months to find like a bar manufacturer who would actually take us seriously, because she actually went like in person to Delhi, and like she met with like, because she's from the north, and she met with like bar manufacturers. She had meetings, and a lot, we like definitely were rejected from like 3 people, because they were like, oh, these guys are high schoolers, and like that is a horrible like mentality that Indian businessmen have. But anyways, because like the power is in the youth. So we finally like met with like Mr. Yatin, who's like a very high level executive at Calibar, and him and like his like boss and other executives were really interested in like working with like us because they thought our ideas were like promising. And then ever since then, he's been with us. Like he has literally like been the best kind of person. So I would say it was a mix of luck and really being rejected 3 times. We're not giving up. 3 times doesn't sound like a big time because usually you'd get rejected more number of times, but we got lucky. And yeah, like I would also say like utilize your parents' contacts. Like there's nothing wrong in that. Like at the end of the day, it's about making the girls like get the proper nutrition. It's not about how you like if you got there by yourself or something. So just like take help from adults, take help from like your community, take help from other people. And yeah, so I took help from them, and then we got lucky with Mr. Yatin. And in a different situation, I would have definitely asked my parents for contacts or spoken to people who may be related and might have someone else in that field. So just speak to a lot of people, be proactive, and you'll like find someone who works.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, like doing these startups, there's always that little problem that people will say, oh, these are high school students. Why should we invest our time into doing something that they want? And they don't really take us seriously. So I do think that that should change soon. And actually, there is a question, how did you balance your work on nutrition and schoolwork?
So I think like most of the like work that I did on nutrition was over the summer. Like the work when I had to like, like really like spend a lot of time like looking at like data and like figuring out like how we can like what kind of nutrients we can focus on to like achieve the balance and things like that, speaking to like our manufacturer and all that stuff. Like I would say the majority of time consuming stuff I did it over the summer. And then like over the school year it was more like administrative things where like there would be small changes, and then there would be things like that. And also like I just saw like a question which I was about to touch on, which is that how did you source funding for this initiative? So like that is something I did over the school year. I think like the main like pro tip of time management is like don't go at it alone. Like find someone who can really help you like be like your partner in like this thing. So like for me, my best friend and my roommate um who is really similar to me, we both were very motivated, and like we really wanted to work on this project and be proactive. So we actually like I would say there's always a sacrifice of time, right? Like maybe we spent like 15 or 30 minutes lesser with our friends when everyone was hanging out, or we did something 30 minutes lesser and we would work over juice breaks or something like that, like if we really had to do work that day, not every day. And we like somehow managed to squeeze like nutrition in by like sacrificing small bits of time from places that weren't that necessary. Sometimes we did lesser sports, and especially when you grow older you realize that if this is something that matters to you more than like going for a basketball practice, and maybe you want to skip one practice, things like that. So like it's a balance. That's how we did it. And having both her and me over it really helped, and having like capitalizing on your breaks to like finish like the more difficult time consuming work is also really really important. So that's how we did it. And then for the funding, like during the school year, again, like we approach people to help us because getting help is really important. So our like the head of our like sports in TISP, I don't know who it is now, but it used to be Mr. Taran. So we told him about this project, and we told him that like we want to organize like a cross country run with like other schools, and we want to like get people to come here and pay like a small fee, and then we'll also have a bake sale. So the bake sale was like completely sponsored by my friend who is an amazing baker, and it was just like a fun thing, like it doesn't have to be like a stressful impressive form of funding. Like it became a whole thing. Like all our boarders came together, and we all like we forced some of our friends to go on the run with like other people, and it was like, and then we made medals and certificates. And yes, it took time, but it was really fun. And like people came along, and like it wasn't a stressful affair. And like my friend who did the baking for her, like for us, like that was a big attractive thing for people, and that was like amazing that she just did that on her own expense. So of course, like not always will you find those people, but if you like reach out to your friends and you're not too competitive in like a weird way that I know some people are, then it can be a really good thing. And like, like we gave our friends certificates so they could also like be like, oh, look, I participated. And they did participate. So you know what I'm saying? That it was like a
Yeah.
whole thing. And Mr. Tarun like reached out to the sports heads of all the other schools, I think even Greenwood, to ask people like, can you come for this thing? So, he helped us, and like there's nothing wrong in asking for help. So that's how we did the funding.
Yeah, honestly, doing these kind of things, not only do they help you like develop your initiative, but they teach you skills like organizing a cross-country run would have taught you a lot of valuable things as well. Like,
Yeah. And
making
like, sorry.
convincing people to go to a run and stuff like that. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah, it was
continue.
like it was really, really like valuable. And just one more thing I wanted to add about the funding was we also did a lot of like reaching out for CSR. CSR is like corporate social responsibility, which like every after you are like a certain like size of a company in India, then you have to like do CSR, which is a form of like you like put a part of your monies like part of the money or your revenue or profit of your business into like doing social good. And it's done like some companies have huge CSR budgets. Like I know a lot about CSR because I like my father has a CSR budget that I used to learn about when I was a kid. So I reached out to a lot of people for CSR also, to fund like Nutri-Shan, but that's a little bit harder route, but you can still take it, and you should.
Yeah. And I do see a few questions that are a little bit like there's something about the like grades in IGCSE. We can move on. We can do that a little later. There's a question which is, what advice would you give to high school students who want to start their own initiatives?
So I would say that like don't like focus on the need to start an initiative, because I just feel so bad about like when I see like some high school students like doing these initiatives for college, and you're wasting so much of like money and time and resources. And so like don't think about the fact that you want to like specifically do like, oh, like I want to do an initiative or something like that. I would say that like if you are the kind of person who's like motivated to make a social change, like that kind of thing, or you have like, it doesn't have to be like social impact, just like a disclaimer, it could be anything. Like some people, I know one of my friends who's at Duke with me, but he's older than me, from TISP. He did this initiative where he literally made a website to sell his like girlfriend's art. And like I'm just saying that like literally like, okay, like then he donated it to charity, and like it was something that he was interested in, like she was like, I want to sell my art, and she's an amazing artist. And he was like, oh, like let me just help her sell her art. And I'm sure he learned a lot in like creating a website to sell art. So initiatives like are like all kinds. They're not always social impact. They could be anything. So I would say that like that was like his interest. Everyone has different kinds of interests. So if you're like wanting to start an initiative or do something or get that kind of experience, then just first like reflect a lot about like what you care about. Like I know a lot of people care about the environment, like I said, especially now, or people care about sports, people care about like online digital art, all sorts of things, right? Like there could be anything. People care about like, someone did an initiative about like the cows in India when they get like kicked out of like these dairy farms, and they have like they're homeless. Like it could be anything. There are so many issues in India slash opportunities everywhere around you. So I'd say like spend some time like reflecting on what you like, what would be something you would really want to spend your time doing. Because if you don't like it, you'll get bored, you won't want to do it, you won't be motivated to like spend time during your like school year to like do that. That's another thing about time management. If you really really like it, you spend time on it anyways. So first reflect on that, and then once you like have like reflected on it and you found something, reach out to like your parents or like other adults in your like their social media and things like that, to find out like any experts in that field. So for instance, if I was interested in like just like working out, like the science of like physical exercise or things like that, then I would want to reach out to like like those doctors or things like that, and like find out like if my parents know someone who's like a physical, I don't know what they're called, but like those doctors that help you do movement, and they manage the science of like exercise and things like that. So I would like do more research into if there are any experts who I can reach out to. And that was like a very specific field I just mentioned, but I think in general there are a lot of like people out there who would be related to your dad's friend, or even on LinkedIn. Like go on LinkedIn, like find find people, write people emails, cold email people, message people. So reach out to people and try to learn from people who are already in that field. Like before you implement an idea, ask them like, okay, this is an idea I have, I want to do it. Like, do you think it's feasible? What challenges could I face? Like ask them for advice. And once you get enough advice, then you want to start thinking about, okay, maybe I should find a friend to do this with, maybe I should have a team. And then once you have like people, a network of people to help you, and you have set that up, then you want to start thinking about, okay, what are the practical aspects? Like, how much time will this take? When should I do this? Will I need source of funding? How will I find that funding? Will I need to like, I needed to like we thought we would need to like get an FSSI license, and then I realized it takes 2 years to get a license. So that made us realize that, okay, no, we have to collaborate with someone who already has a cleared license. So like things like that, like then you start thinking about the details, and then it'll just like lead you to like what you need to do. And then and then work hard. That's the advice I can.
Yeah, that's some great advice. I hope people are noting these things down because it is very useful. So let's move on to the next slide. And if anyone has any more questions, we will address the things that are not exactly related to the topic. Like there's a question about another initiative you're doing, Stapu Education. We can cover that later on, but let's cover the rest of the topics.
Okay, I'm gonna like try to speed through this because I know we have like a time thing. So choosing schools, I don't think this is like really that important for any of you guys now that I think about it, because you guys are all like pretty young, like you're just in like 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. But if you are in like 11th grade or 12th and you're like somewhere near the end, then you need to start thinking about like which schools you want to put on your list. And in general, like there are 3 like categories. I would say your college counselors in your school should be helping you a lot, but at TISP they definitely like helped. But I did this like, it's like pretty universal rule. You don't have to apply to like, I don't know how many schools there are, but I think I did like 13. But there was like 1 application for UC, so maybe I did like 8 or 9 applications. I don't know. So you want to split them in dream schools, which is schools where you could get into, but like there's no guarantee. So like for me, like of course, like I can't like be like I applied REA to Harvard, and I can't say that I'm gonna get into Harvard. Like like you are never, no matter how like impressive you are, you're never gonna have like a guarantee to get into some school. So those are like my dream schools. So I guess I had like a higher chance of getting into Duke and Brown and UPenn and Northwestern. But again, like I was rejected from Northwestern. So you never know if you would get in or not. It depends on your circumstances. One of my best friends got into Northwestern and she fit their profile more. So like, it really depends. So those are like the uncertain dream schools that you would, if you got into them, you'd want to go there without any like thought. Then you have the reach schools. Reach schools are schools you want to like, you'd probably get into. Like there's an 85 to 90% chance you're going to get into those schools, but they're like the perfect match for you. Okay, not 85 to 90, that's the wrong way. They're like a perfect match for you, and you like those schools. Like you would be happy to go there. Like of course you'd be sad if you didn't get into your dream schools, but you would be like satisfied going to those schools. So for me, that was like Georgetown School of Foreign Service, USC, Emory, Vanderbilt, UC Berkeley, UCLA. So you see, like I got accepted in like most of them except for Vanderbilt, where I was waitlisted, and then I got off the waitlist because I got into some of my dream schools. But I'm just saying that those are like the schools where they are your perfect match. And if you don't get into your dream, you'd want to go there. And by match, I mean like your grades, when college counselors advise you to apply to those schools or not, things like that. That's what determines your match. And then safety schools are schools you're definitely going to get into. You definitely want to apply to at least 2 safety schools. I only did 2 because if I didn't get into the rest of the entire list, then I guess I'd just be going there. But you'd probably get into your safety schools. So that's how you should create your list. And a quick overview, I would say like these details are not that important to come from me because you're probably going to be able to search it up anyways. But in like the American application, you have like early round and then you have a regular round. So you also have some colleges that do rolling rounds. I didn't apply to any colleges that have like rolling admissions, but I know that IU Kelly, it's a business school, is one. Indiana University, that's the one that I know of. That my friends applied to. In the early round, like you have early decision, which is binding. So if you apply to a school for early decision, then if you get in, you have to go. So like you get to know if you've gotten in or not, like by October, November, or no, some December,
Which,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, you get to know then, whatever. The point is, if you get in, you go. And then there's restricted early action, which is what I did. So Harvard, Yale, and I think another like few schools have REA. And if you apply there, you can't apply to any other school early, but if you get in, you have the choice to go or not. And then you have regular decision and things like that. So I would just say, like, rather than me giving you these details, when you're applying to college, really search up like the different rounds. Some schools really give you preference. Like if you apply early to Duke, you get a definite preference of getting in than applying normal. But Harvard, where I applied early, does not give you a preference. But I still did it because like it was my dream school. So I'm just saying that, like, like do like research and be sure when you're applying the right round in the right balance. Don't overdo it. These applications are really stressful. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's I had a couple of questions like did you have a college counselor and do you recommend having one?
So I had a college counselor for a brief period. I know a lot of my friends paid a lot of money for expensive, like well-known college counselors, which I think is like literally the best way to waste your money. Because like I know like my one of my friends who was like a really strong candidate for Stanford, but she didn't get in and she ended up going in another school where she's doing a very like highly specialized program too. And she's definitely going to be as successful if she went to Stanford or that other school. I'm just saying, I know that she paid for one of these like expensive counselors in Bangalore, forgot their name. I paid for a counselor, which I would say is like, which was definitely would have been expensive for some people, but I did it for like a very short period of time because I only needed help with like choosing, like making my college list, which again, now I've realized you can do it with like the amount of resources you have online, but it helps if a specialist is giving you advice, if your like choice is like well balanced or not. So that's what I needed a counselor for to, but all of these schools were chosen by me. I just found out like the balance and I removed some schools that I didn't need to apply to. And the other thing I use them for is like a basic form of editing. Now, like, please don't use your counselors to like write your essays. First of all, that's like plagiarism, or I mean cheating or whatever. But like that's up to you. That's your personal morals. But don't use counselors to like edit your essays and things like that, because don't forget that when they're doing that for you, they're doing that for everyone else who's like their client. Then all of your essays are gonna look the same. So I use like a counselor. My counselor had like half counselor friend who was in the US, and she used like I used her to like shorten my essays if I needed to, if I was missing the word count by like 10 words, or like editing my essays to the point where it didn't like ruin my voice. So I'd say like if you're using a counselor for editing, which really helps, use them, but like be careful you like keep your voice in your essays. So yeah, that's all I use my counselors for.
Okay, yeah. And there is also, yeah, so I know a lot of people who also go to coaching classes for the SAT. How did you prepare for your SAT?
Okay, so the first time I did it, I didn't do any classes and I did it all wrong. I did the wrong books and things like that. I would definitely recommend coaching classes for SAT. I know a lot of kids don't give like a lot of like care about like their SAT scores, and they just like do it on their own, which is also okay if you're that kind of learner. For me, I'm the kind of learner that like I want to practice like a full-on SAT test for 3 hours, like again and again. And that's what got me like that really high score. So I would say that like do it. I did it with someone online, and they didn't really help me in like learning concepts because I was like clear on concepts, but they helped me, like they gave me like paper printouts and I could go to their center and just do an SAT test for 3 hours and come. So I kind of use their like you get it, like I use their like place, and I use their past papers because they had access to so many past papers, and I didn't want to sit and dig for those past papers and not find them and things like that. So I use them for doing like a lot of practice tests, especially like the week before my SAT.
Yeah, I do think that there are of course people who do it on their own, but really having a like an obligation, like a class to go to in order to actually like practice, like okay, I can't like
Yeah,
postpone this because I'm busy with homework. You
yeah.
have to go for the class, so you're guaranteeing that you will do the test. So yeah, that is a good point. Yeah, and I don't think is there, yeah, there was a question about like suppose you get two Bs in IGCSE and maintain high grades from 11th grade, would the IGCSE score prevent high level colleges from accepting you?
Okay, so like first of all, it's like not that straightforward. Like you never like a college is not going to accept you because of like one grade or something like that. Like a lot of my friends were extremely intelligent people, amazing grades, even did like international math tournaments and won them and like God knows what. But it's like really not like, it's about the whole picture. So you kind of want to say that like, okay, if you got like two B's in IGCSE, then like you obviously want to push your grades in 11th and 12th grade, because what they really care about is your improvement. Like if you really improved and then you got like trust me, they care about improvement, and you got like really like great grades in like 11th and 12th grade, then they'll be like, wow, like this guy really improved. And the fact that he worked hard and he can improve and this is like his real level, of course they're going to recognize that. So like two B's, like I guess in the grand scheme of things, like they're not going to make like that much of a difference. But the point is not to like, the point is to improve. If you don't improve, then it might make a difference on your acceptance.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Oh, and even somebody asked, how many applications should someone ideally do?
So I think it really depends on you. I know that like, so my UC application, in which I got UC Berkeley, UCLA, UCSD, and Davis, the last four like colleges on the list, they're all in one application. But the thing is, you have to write like 4 long essays for that application. And then my Georgetown like college just works in a way that they have a different portal. So I had to write like a different like long essay and like shorter essays for Georgetown too. And then for the rest of my colleges, I applied through the Common App. So I'm just saying that like it really depends on how much work. Like some colleges don't have a lot of work. Like U Chicago had 2 long 500-word essays I had to write. Harvard had 1 long essay. Yale had like shorter essays. So it depends. Like sometimes you want to reuse some of your essays. Like I use my Duke and Brown essays like because they were like similar prompts. So I like, reuse them, change them a little, change the focus a little bit and reuse them. So then like, yeah, I could apply to more. But I know my brother applied to like more schools than me. TISV usually wants you to apply to like 8 schools at least. Some people go crazy with 14 and 15. No, TISU has like a limit. You can't do more than like 13 or something like that. But I would just say that don't overdo it. Make your priority list of the ones you have to apply to. Try to like, okay, if you're applying to UCs, I could have applied to more, I just didn't want to. It just is like an extra fee. So if you can afford that fee, like just apply more. Like why not? Because like you're not doing extra work. So it's all about how much time you have. I would say apply to at least 5 dream schools. Apply to like maybe like 6 like reaches. Like it depends, but keep a ratio where like your dream and reach are like same number, or your reach are more, because you're really betting like your money on your reach. Your dream is like maybe not.
Yeah, it should just be a sufficient amount that you have a school to go to and you're going to be happy going there.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's move on. There is a question about how you decided, but we will come to that.
Okay, yeah, we'll come to that in the end. So I'm not gonna like get into too much of detail again with the essays, because this advice might not be like very useful for you guys right now, because you're like, this advice is only going to be like a lot more useful when you're actually writing the essays. But like I said, I use 3 portals, just giving you an overview. A lot of colleges have their own portals, so I don't know about that. But like Georgetown had its own portal, so I use that. And then I use the Common App, where you have one main essay, the Common App essay, which goes to all the colleges. And then you have like supplement essays for each college that are like completely separate. They can be anything. Some colleges let you upload like art portfolios, also things like that. So you want to like look into that. And then the UC application is again different. For the UC application, you have 4 main like essays, and they all go to all the colleges. So your what you write for one UC is the same for all the UCs. So that's the advantage of the UC. But for Common App, you need to do some like more work. So that's, yeah. So the Common App essay is really important. I would say that like I like literally can't even give that much advice at this point, because it will really only come to you when you're in like 11th grade and starting your 12th grade, starting to write your essays. That's when you really think about your Common App. So don't worry too much about that right now. I would just, the only advice I'd give for essays in general for you guys right now, since you're like in high school, is that if you have a very interesting experience in your life that happens right now, or you remember, or anything, you learn something from an experience, you do an internship maybe, or anything, and you are learning things on the way, just write them down. Like write them down somewhere. Like you can always come back to it, especially when you're going to write your essays. It's going to be really important. And it's better to like have your thoughts or feelings or things you went through at that time like accessible than like trying to remember from memory. So just write down cool things that happen to you, like journal entries, try to journal, that really helps. But it's not anything stressful. And in general, like so my only like main advice for essays is like a lot of people like try to focus on like their achievement in essays, and there are essays that ask like supplement essays, there are essays that ask you for achievements where you should focus on achievements. Like they may say like, tell me a time you worked in a team project and what you learned. Sure, like you want to be like kind of trying to be like, oh, like this team project I learned this and it was like in this competition or something, I don't know. But like just remember that the activity section is for your achievements, so you're already talking about your achievements there. So don't use your essays to the extent where you can, unless the prompt asks for it, to talk about your achievements. Like focus on experiences. Like they really want to know who you are, you know, like what's the difference between you and like another million kids who have the same achievements as you, even me, like a million kids. Like we're all the same in the world, right? Like it's just that you have to like focus on your unique experiences, and your unique experiences are only if you're honest. Like if you're going to try to be like make up experiences, then they will exactly be like the experiences of someone else. So like my unique experience would have been something I learned from my grandfather when I was like 8 years old. Like no one else has the same grandfather as me, from the same city and the same situation. So focus on experiences that taught you things, made you who you are. Anything like that. It's all about your personality and character, nothing fancy, impressive stuff. That's it.
This is really great advice. Thank you so much for all of these tips. And the one about like writing your like important like experiences down is actually a really good one, because you might forget that, oh, in ninth grade I did this competition, and then in the whole busy time of 11th grade, that could have been a great topic to write about. So
Yeah.
I would definitely also apply that, noting things down. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions on the essays? Okay, I think even the next topic is quite similar. So let's just move on, and there'll be the Q&A. So that's
Yeah,
fine.
okay. I'm gonna like not really do a lot on this page because it's something similar to I said what I said before. I just said that like when you're crafting, again, this is something more important later on. But when you're crafting like the voice, every application has a voice that is like your voice. It's a unique voice, and like a lot of the admissions officers that came also told us like things like this, where like when they're like choosing a person, they want to like think about like the entire batch as a whole. Like you are obviously, so okay, so essentially what I'm trying to say is that every college has like an ethos, it has like a value system, they have core values. If you spend enough time stalking their websites, reading blogs and stuff like that, you'll realize what's the vibe of each university. And some universities have a very specific vibe. Like I know I can like confidently tell that like UPenn is like very interested in leaders, people who are like very like quintessential leaders. Like I think everyone is a leader in a different way, but like you know, like student council leaders and like people who are like that kind of like traditional leader sense. Because a lot of kids who I interacted with who got into UPenn like me were like very similar to me in their like theoretical like leadership positions. So like I would say that I think UPenn is like pretty much interested in the value of leadership. So you want to focus on that when you're applying to UPenn. But I think that it takes a lot of time for you to understand what each like university's value is, because you have to do a lot of research. And you also have to talk to people. So like when you're writing your essays at that point in the future, definitely reach out to people who are at that college. And especially if they're from your high school, they'll be more willing to help you, and try to understand what that college cares about. Duke is an exception, I think. I mean, even like Duke, Yale, Harvard, like some of these schools, they don't have like very specific strong value. I mean, they have like strong values like academic and like what the university stands for, but I think like their like classes are truly diverse. Like at Duke, I have not met like one kind of person. Like I think everyone is like very, very kind, and everyone really cares about like is passionate about something and has done something about what they're passionate about, and you can see that. But I think everyone's passions are like really, really diverse. So that's what I like personally love about Duke. But you wouldn't see that at Penn, at Brown. Like since Brown has like an art school which is like connected, like RISD, like maybe you want to like think about taking advantage of that. So that's what I mean by the college and you. Like think about your own values and things like that, and then try to focus on things that like the college also may be interested in, but not too much. Like there's a balance, you know, like I wrote about my art side for Brown because obviously Brown has an art school. So it would be like Like, why would Brown want to take me? Like, oh, like she might take advantage of like our school and our art school too. So like, that's just like an advantage. But I disclaimer, like this is all from my experience. I can't tell anything for sure unless like you spoke to an admissions officer and they really said like the entire experience is like a mystery. This is just like
Yeah.
my like best estimation of it, which may be different from other people's. So just like be mindful of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with this. And also, like, let's move on to the next slide so that you can actually tie into why you chose Duke with the core values advice that you gave.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so choosing Duke. So I know like I got into a lot of schools which were like um I would say some people might think like they're better than Duke. I back when I wanted to do econ, like I was really like considering U Chicago as like even above Harvard, even if I applied to Harvard early. And when I did get into like U Chicago and like U Penn and Brown, which are like Ivy leagues, and I had these like options in front of me, then I like spent like a lot of time thinking about them. Now, like my older brother like goes to Duke, so that was like one experience I got of like the Duke life, like what is life like at Duke. But I also spoke to his best friend who goes to UPenn. I spoke to some seniors who went to Brown. I spoke to people who were like there to understand what life at college is. And if I'm being really honest, like at least for me, like I don't know how it is for like schools of like different tiers, but I would say on like this tier of schools, like all of these schools are the same. Like the academics that I would get at Duke are the same academics I would get at Stanford, unless like Stanford is like specializing in a particular program that you only get at Stanford. Like for instance, like environmental science at Duke is going to be better than environmental science at any college in the world, because we have like the best environmental science like graduate school of Nicholas of the environment. So like like my brother was interested in the environment, so Duke was an obvious choice for him, even if he got into Cornell and Dartmouth and all these other Ivies. But for me, like I was really confused. Like I thought I might do econ, I might do like, I don't know, now I'm doing computer science, I could have done maths. Like I was like genuinely so confused. So then I like really focused on the quality of life I would have. So like at Penn, the quality of life is horrible. Like that is a fact. Like a lot of students say that students at Penn are very competitive. There's always a pressure to move towards warden and go to like finance. And like, I might go to finance too, like from Duke, but that's going to be different because I always had like an opportunity to like do different things. So I didn't want to be in a stressful, like over competitive environment. I didn't want to be in U Chicago because the weather is so cold. First of all, like we're from India, like I
Yeah.
cannot survive in minus 15 degrees. Like, no, like it affects my mood. And at the end of the day, you want to choose a place where you'll be happy and successful. Those are the two things, right? I knew I can't do that at U Chicago. They have no like happy, like party, like happening life. Like they don't have a good balance between their academics and their social life. So I didn't want to go to U Chicago. I didn't want to go to Brown because Brown is known for like in Brown, you can create your own major. You have a lot of like what do you call it? Like freedom, which is really good for some people. Like some people, especially in the humanities, like they want to do that. They want to combine like English and like history and I don't know, chemistry, and they want to make a major out of that. And like at Brown, you could really do that stuff, which may be cool to some people. But I would say I'm like a balance between like the Penn and the Brown like ethos. Like I like to be like somewhat competitive and ambitious, and I'm interested in business and I'm interested in like entrepreneurship, which are all like very fast moving like fields. But I'm also interested in the arts, but I don't want my life to be like so like not challenging too. Like I'm not saying Brown is not challenging. These are just like extremes, but I'm just saying that I kind of got a very good idea of like the vibe at each school, the weather, the kind of people, the quality of food. Is my money worth it? That's also an important question. If you're paying so much money to go to a school, Penn has horrible dining. Like I didn't want to live in a place where I'm going to be unhappy. So
Yeah.
I thought a lot about those factors, and a lot of people were surprised I made this decision, but I like have never been happier, especially when I speak to like my best friends at like Stanford and other schools. And I just think like I'm getting the same advantages, but I'm much more happier. So I wanted to be in that kind of environment. And Duke is the biggest school for basketball, which I thought was really cool. Duke has amazing campus spirit that like most like universities don't have, which is why a lot of kids choose Duke too. So overall, like because of all those factors, I chose Duke, and I'm really happy at Duke. I think I feel very supported. So I think I made the right choice for sure.
Yeah, this is some great advice, and I completely agree because you should also factor in like what's the climate of the place, and whether you are more like you prefer city life or you prefer the suburbs, and just
Yeah.
the like almost like the essence of that college, like what do they really value, and the entire like attitude of the people that attend that college. There's a lot of factors, not just like, oh, it's an Ivy League, so I'm gonna go there.
Yeah, like a lot of people
Because
do that Ivy League stuff, but like I know, I mean, I have so many like close friends in Ivy Leagues, and like if that is your personality and you'd be happy, truly happy in that environment, then definitely choose it. But at the end of the day, like college, I don't even know what college rankings are anymore, but like they're always shifting around these few like 15 top schools. And like sometimes like MIT is number one, sometimes MIT is number nine. Like I'm just saying, like now we're number five. Like I don't know, we used to be number 10. Like it just like happens, it changes every year. And I like assure you, it is not going to make a big difference. These universities have so much to offer. You don't have time to like do all of it. Just like mental health is the most important thing in your life. If you don't prioritize it, you will never be successful anyways. So that's how you should choose schools, not if they're like impressive or whatever.
yeah, I completely agree with you. And let's move on to the next slide. We are kind of delayed.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
like yeah, we definitely are.
Yeah, so this is like gap year, and then we're gonna take questions from the audience. So why don't you just tell the audience like why did you choose to do a gap year and what you got from it, and like what did you do in your gap year?
So I know a lot of people like take gap years and then apply to college. I don't know how that's like, so I'm not gonna like give advice about that. But I like got into colleges and then I took a gap year because I didn't want to go to college in like COVID, even though like Duke was like in the forefront of the COVID response. Like we were definitely like the only school that stayed open the entire time. But because we have like an amazing health like department and we have our own hospitals and whatnot. But I didn't like I just was not in a great mental health space to start college, and I didn't get my visa, so I would have to join in Jan, which a lot of like Indian kids did at Duke in my class, and they were like happy with it. But I just like didn't want to do that, so I just like thought that it would be better for me to take a gap year. And I'd read so many amazing things about people taking gap years, that I was really excited by the idea of taking a year to like chill, work on something I really cared about, maybe travel, which I did. So I put like photos from my like 3 months that I lived in France. So I'm just saying, like, there are a lot of things you can do over your gap year. I know my other friend at Duke who's with me, like, he spent his entire gap year at home, but he worked on really cool things. Like, he worked at like he wanted to do 3D printing. Like, it's like 1 year in your life where no one cares. Like, no one's gonna say you need to do something impressive. You can actually live your life, learn new things, expand the way you think. Everyone who I met over my gap year, like one of the girls in the photo, like she goes to Duke with me, and I just happened to meet her in France. Like, I'm just saying that gap years are amazing things. I wish I could have traveled in India, to be honest. I would have preferred that, but COVID was really, really bad then. So I'm just saying, like, a lot of people don't consider taking a gap year, but once you do get in, really consider taking a gap year. It is the most incredible experience of your life, and it just like it changes you in amazing ways, and it prepares you for college more than you could have ever been, and it gets you out of the stupid high school mentality of like being stressed out all the time. So yeah, like that's my advice for a gap year, but like I'm happy to take any other questions.
Yeah, it's actually, I agree with you, because after like 4 years of like stress, like, okay, college, you finally got into college, so that's over, and then you now have time to actually like live your life.
Yeah, which you should. Like, you're not going to get this time again ever, especially once you get into college, which is even more stressful than high school. So just
Yeah.
like do it. Like, do it while you can. Like,
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so this is great. Now, yes, we have to get back to the question about STAPU education.
oh, right. Okay. So Stapu, like, so basically, like, over my gap, before I decided to take a gap year, I like met Ishita, who I know like gave a talk like on this on the teen talks like before.
Yeah.
But like she's like one of my best friends now. But we met like mutually because we had some mutual friends, and like we just like clicked really well together, and we were interested in a lot of similar things. So we decided to work together. Both of us are on gap year, so we just decided to work together and like look at the education crisis that had happened like post the pandemic. So as soon as COVID hit, like school shut, and I'm sure like it was fine for all of you guys because you could just study online, but for low income students it really was not like that. So we were really interested in learning about that, so we spent the entire year like building a startup which we call Stapu, and it's an app, and it uses like gamification and like different kinds of incentives to help kids like learn, keep learning math and English throughout the pandemic. And we use like it was a very complicated process. I don't want to like get into it, it would take like more than like an hour to explain it, but essentially it was just a startup that we both worked on. We wanted to like explore entrepreneurship, so we did this together, and then we entered like an accelerator, which is like where you get funding for startups and you get to learn things and apply to your startup. So we did that with like Stanford's digital learning design challenge, and we did things like that. Like even while I was traveling and she was traveling in Australia, like we were working on the startup, and the whole aim was to help kids keep learning but also build like digital literacy skills, so that in the future the way you guys can search up stuff about college and like go to Khan Academy and learn, like we want low income students to also be able to do that and take advantage of those resources. So yeah, like that's what our startup was about, and we spent like 8 hours a day working on it, and yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's a wonderful startup. Actually, if there is a website or any page, you can
Oh yeah,
actually,
I just do that. That'll be like the best way for you guys to like see what it is.
yeah, because it is a very great initiative. Like, just kudos to Ishita and Ayushi.
Thank you.
And people, you can also ask your own questions in the chat, or you can unmute and ask them to Ayushi, whatever questions you have. Oh yes, I forgot about one question. It was, oh, this has already been answered, but it was, how did you decide for Duke University over other schools? Yeah, we've already answered that.
I saw that.
So
I just kind of like, yeah.
yeah, so does anyone have any more questions? Okay. So somebody had asked, how did you know which field you wanted to pursue, and when did you find out? How did you prepare for it?
How did you know which field? So I don't like, honestly, I still don't know like what field I want to pursue. The only thing I know is like I really like entrepreneurship. And like honestly, you don't have to like know what field you want to pursue at a young age. You're never gonna know it. You're like, I think you're like a lifelong learner, or at least that's how I see like my life. And I always like think that like there's something new to learn. And entrepreneurship was like the best field which complemented my skills. It made me feel like every day was really exciting, and it also like gave me a lot of scope to go into any like field, because you can be an entrepreneur in like pharmaceutical things, or like pure science, in research, in sports, in arts, in anything. So I knew for like a fact that I'm not ever going to stick to like one field like that. So I wanted to go in something that would let me be everywhere. Other examples are like tech, because it could be related to any field, things like that. And also like I spent my first semester doing different classes in like environment, in computer science, and things like that. And I figured out I really like computer science, which I need to build a startup. And I think that's the reason you should also take a gap year, because you can do a bunch of different like little projects, you can do online courses, you can read, you can do things to really understand what you like and what you don't. And it's definitely doing the startup with Ishita over my gap year that like showed both me and her that we really, really like entrepreneurship. And to answer like the other person's question, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do after college. I'm just going to try to get like a job. Like I'm going to spend my college life like learning a bunch of different things, as a liberal arts education should be. And post college, I hopefully want to like get some experience working at a startup for a few years in the US, so then I can come back and do my own startup in India.
Yeah, that's great. And does anyone else have any more questions?
I'm just going to stop sharing.
Yeah. Anything you want to ask Ayushi, you can like, Ayushi, if you're okay with it, you can maybe share like some way people can contact you, like an email ID or an Instagram account.
Yeah, I can definitely share my email or like my Instagram too. Like But I'm not
Whichever
like,
you're comfortable with.
yeah, I'm not like really that active on my Instagram. So maybe my email is like a better option.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Okay, everyone just save that. And any more questions?
you can definitely like email me. You might come up with questions like at some point later. But like honestly, just like don't stress out too much. Just like actually enjoy your life. Like I don't think a lot of like kids in high school do that anymore. Me and my friends did that and it worked out really well for us. And so did other people I know, like Ishita and Alekia and all of these other people who spoke before me.
Yeah.
Thank you for like
Yes. Okay, so I don't think anyone has any more questions, so I will wrap up. So like just a big thank you to Aayushi for taking out your time and just putting in the effort to give us such a great talk. This was so informative. Like there are just so many new tips that I got, not just like because I have been organizing the talk as well. I have gotten advice, but this was like really new and educative and informative for me. So thank you so much for that. And I was very impressed with your extracurriculars and your project, and you must have been a great student, and all the best for your future endeavors.
Thank you. So honestly, like I should thank you. I think like it's a really great thing you're doing with the teen talks, and like especially for like people who like might not have that many seniors or like older sibling or anything. Like you guys should like definitely come to like all of her talks. And all the other people who spoke to, like Ishita and Alekia, like they are like my really good friends. I know like they have great advice to offer. So yeah, like I think like good job to you. And I hope that all of you guys like do really well in like the next 3-4 years and get
Yes.
what you want.
And I do want to take the time out to thank you all for attending this talk and just, taking the time out to attend the webinar. And a lot of you stayed even though we went over time. So I really appreciate it. And I hope you learned just as much as I did today. Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you, Aayushi. Thank you to all
Thank
the
you, Radhika.
attendees. And see you next time. Have a great day. Yes, I will be sending like previous recordings for anybody who wants to. Since everyone RSVP to a certain number, I can send previous recordings. So yes. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.